Close your eyes. Imagine opening them to find yourself deep in the Amazon rainforest. No food, no shelter, and every sound could mean danger. Could you survive even one day? Why you wouldn't survive one day in the Amazon rainforest, a meditative journey through nature's greatest wonder. Introduction, you find yourself at the edge of something magnificent, something ancient and profound that stretches beyond the horizon of your imagination. The Amazon rainforest, Earth's living heart, beating with the rhythm of millions of creatures, breathing with the slow, deep pulse of time itself. As you stand here, at this threshold between the familiar and the unknown, you begin to understand why this place has captured the dreams of explorers, the reverence of scientists, and the whispered legends of indigenous peoples for countless generations. This is not merely a forest, but a living cathedral where every leaf is a prayer, every drop of water a blessing, and every breath of air carries the wisdom of ages. The Amazon spans over 2 million square miles, larger than the entire continental United States. Yet from where you stand, you can see only a green wall of possibility, stretching upward toward a canopy so dense that it creates its own weather, its own seasons, its own secret world high above your head. You breathe in slowly and taste the richness of this air, thick with moisture and life, heavy with the perfume of 1,000 flowering plants, sweet with the decay that feeds new growth, complex beyond any fragrance you have ever known. Here, in this moment of quiet contemplation, you realize that you are about to embark on a journey not of conquest, but of understanding. You will not fight this forest, for it is not your enemy. You will not conquer its challenges, for they are not obstacles to overcome, but rather gentle teachers, showing you the delicate balance, the intricate dance, the profound interconnectedness of all life on Earth. As you prepare to step forward, you feel a deep sense of peace settling over you, like a soft blanket woven from morning mist and evening shadows. You understand now that this story is not about survival in the way you might have imagined. It is about recognizing your place, your smallness, your beautiful insignificance in the grand tapestry of existence. It is about learning to listen, to observe, to be present in a world that has existed long before you and will continue long after you are gone. The sun filters through the canopy above, creating a gentle, green, tinted light that seems to move and dance, casting shadows that shift like thoughts across the forest floor. You close your eyes for a moment and feel the forest breathing around you. The slow inhale of oxygen being released by countless leaves. The gentle exhale of carbon dioxide being absorbed by patient trees. You are part of this breath now, part of this ancient rhythm, part of this eternal song. When you open your eyes again, You are ready, ready to walk gently into this green dream, ready to learn what the forest has to teach you, ready to discover why. In your current state of being, with your current knowledge, your current connection to the natural world, you would find it difficult to spend even one day here, not because the forest is cruel, but because it requires a different kind of wisdom, a different way of being, a different relationship with the world than most of us possess. And so, with each step you take, you will not be fighting for survival, but rather learning to surrender, learning to listen, learning to become, if only for a few peaceful moments, a part of something much larger and more wonderful than yourself. Chapter 1. The Embrace of Climate. You step into the forest now, and immediately you feel it. The embrace of a climate unlike any you have ever known. It wraps around you like a warm, wet blanket, soft and enveloping, yet somehow overwhelming in its constancy, its inescapable presence. The humidity here hovers at 90% or higher, creating an atmosphere so thick with moisture that you can almost see it, almost taste it with every breath. As you walk deeper, you notice how the air itself seems to have weight, substance. It clings to your skin like a gentle caress, beating into tiny droplets that trace lazy paths down your arms, your face, your neck. This is not the uncomfortable stickiness of a summer day in the city, but something more profound, more elemental. It is the breath of the forest itself, the exhalation of millions of leaves, the gift of water being shared freely, generously, continuously. The temperature remains steady, a constant embrace of warmth that never varies more than a few degrees, hovering always between 75 and 85 degrees Fahrenheit, day and night, season after season. There is something deeply soothing about this consistency, this reliable warmth that asks nothing of you, demands no adaptation, no struggle against cold, no search for warmth. It simply is, like a mother's embrace, constant and reassuring. But as you continue walking, you begin to understand why your body, accustomed to the dry air of air, conditioned spaces, the predictable cycles of heated and cooled environments, begins to feel a gentle fatigue, not unpleasant, but noticeable, like sinking into a warm bath that slowly draws away your energy, replacing urgency with languor, haste with patience, anxiety with a dreamy sort of acceptance. Your clothing, chosen for the adventure you thought you were embarking upon, now feels different, heavier somehow, as it absorbs the moisture from the air, from your skin. It becomes a second skin, wet and clinging, but not uncomfortably so, more like the way a flower feels after a gentle rain, refreshed and renewed, yet somehow changed, transformed by its encounter with water. And then, as if summoned by your growing awareness of the forest's breath, the rain begins. But this is not the rain you know from other places, not the sharp drops that fall like accusations from gray skies, not the violent downpours that drum against windows and rooftops. This is something gentler, more mystical. The water seems to materialize from the very air itself, condensing on leaves high above, gathering into droplets that release and fall softly, rhythmically, like a lullaby made liquid. You tilt your face upward and feel these drops touch your skin like blessings, cool against the warm humidity, each one a tiny gift from the canopy above. The sound is unlike any rain you have ever heard, muffled by layers upon layers of leaves, creating a soft susurrus, a whispered conversation between sky and earth, between height and depth, between giving and receiving. As the rain continues, you realize that this is not a storm to wait out, not weather to endure, but simply the forest's way of being. Rain here is not an event, but a state of existence, something that happens for hours, sometimes days, without beginning or end, without crescendo or resolution. It simply is, like breathing, like the beating of a heart, like the slow passage of time itself. The water runs in tiny rivulets down every surface. Every leaf becomes a waterfall in miniature. Every branch a channel for the forest's circulation. You watch in quiet fascination as the entire jungle becomes a living system of hydration, each drop finding its way slowly, inevitably, back to the earth, back to the roots, back to the beginning of the cycle. Your feet begin to squelch softly in the increasingly saturated earth, not mud exactly, but something richer, more alive. A carpet of decomposing leaves and organic matter gives way gently beneath your weight, accepting your presence, cushioning your steps, welcoming you into its soft embrace. You realize that walking here requires a different rhythm, a different relationship with the ground beneath your feet. Not the confident stride of pavement walking, but something more like a dance, a negotiation, a conversation with the living floor of the forest. As hours pass, you begin to understand how this climate, so gentle and embracing, so consistent and reliable, could gradually wear away at your energy, not through any violence or extremity, but through its very constancy, its inescapable presence. Your body, designed for variety, for cycles of wet and dry, hot and cold, begins to long for something it cannot name, some contrast, some break in the pattern, some moment of dryness, of coolness, of change. But there is no change here, only the eternal dance of warmth and moisture, the endless conversation between air and water, the perpetual embrace of a climate that knows no seasons as you understand them, no relief, no variation, only this beautiful, overwhelming, all-encompassing presence that slowly, gently, lovingly reminds you that you are a visitor in a world that operates by different rules, different rhythms, different needs than your own. And as you settle into the rhythm of this place, as you surrender to its gentle insistence, you begin to feel something shift inside you, a letting go, a relaxation, a recognition that fighting this climate would be like fighting the tide, pointless and exhausting. Instead, you breathe deeply, taste the thick, rich air, feel the caress of moisture on your skin, listen to the endless whisper of water moving through leaves, and allow yourself to be held, embraced, welcomed into the forest's ancient rhythm of warmth and wetness, of constancy and change, of being exactly, eternally itself. Chapter 2. The gentle presence of life. As you move deeper into this green sanctuary, you begin to sense them all around you. The countless lives that call this place home, not as threats or dangers, but as fellow travelers in the great journey of existence. Each creature here, from the tiniest ant to the most magnificent jaguar, is perfectly adapted, perfectly at home, perfectly integrated into the intricate web of relationships that makes this forest pulse with life. You pause beside a massive cecropia tree, its trunk smooth and pale, its leaves broad and welcoming. As you rest your hand against its bark, you become aware of movement all around you, not frantic or threatening, but purposeful, deliberate, alive. Leafcutter ants parade in organized columns along invisible highways, each carrying a piece of leaf, like a tiny green umbrella, their destination and purpose clear to them, mysterious and wonderful to you. They pay you no attention, for you are not part of their ancient mission, their genetic imperative, their collective dream. High above, you catch glimpses of movement in the canopy, the flash of brilliant colors that might be tokens or parrots, the rustle of leaves that suggests the presence of monkeys, moving with an ease and grace that speaks of millions of years of adaptation, of evolution's patient artistry, of life finding its perfect expression in this vertical world that exists far above your head. You listen to their calls, not as cacophony, but as conversation, a complex language of territory and courtship, warning and invitation, joy and sorrow, all the emotions that connect every living thing. A three-toed sloth hangs motionless in a tree nearby, so still that you almost miss it, its fur green with algae, its eyes half closed in what seems like perpetual meditation, watching you with an expression of infinite patience, infinite acceptance. It moves, when it moves at all, with a deliberation that seems to mock the very concept of haste, each gesture economical, purposeful, perfectly timed to the rhythm of a life lived entirely in the present moment. You become aware of the snakes, not as sudden terrors, but as elegant examples of evolution's artistry. The fur-de lance, coiled in perfect spirals among the leaf litter, has its heat, sensing pits attuned to every warm, blooded creature within striking distance, but shows no interest in you as you pass, for you have learned to move slowly, quietly, respectfully through their domain. The emerald tree boa hangs like a living vine, its scales catching and reflecting the filtered sunlight. Beautiful beyond description, deadly beyond measure, yet possessing a dignity, a presence that commands respect rather than fear. In the muddy banks of a slow, moving stream, you see the eyes and nostrils of a caiman protruding just above the surface, patient as stone, ancient as time itself. It watches you with the wisdom of a creature that has remained essentially unchanged for millions of years, having achieved a perfection of form and function that requires no improvement, no evolution, no change. You understand that this is not malevolence in those eyes, but simply nature itself, pure, undiluted, without judgment or mercy, without cruelty or kindness, simply being perfectly exactly what it is. The insects here exist in numbers beyond imagination, beyond comprehension. Butterflies drift through shafts of sunlight like living stained glass, their wings painted with colors that seem to glow from within. Each species is perfectly adapted to its niche, some so specialized that they can survive only on a single type of flower, drink nectar from only one species of plant, and exist in harmony with only one particular combination of temperature, humidity, and light. You pause to observe a column of army ants, thousands upon thousands of individuals, moving as one organism, flowing like a river of purpose across the forest floor. Everything in their path gives way, not in fear exactly, but in recognition of an elemental force, a manifestation of life's relentless creativity. Its endless experimentation with form and function, with cooperation and competition, with individual needs and collective survival. Mosquitoes hum around you, attracted by your warmth, your breath, your foreignness in this place. They are not malicious, simply hungry. Following programming written in their genes millions of years before you were born, before your species existed, before the very concept of malice had any meaning. You understand that they see you not as an enemy to be defeated, but as an opportunity, a resource, a gift presented by the forest for their use. A jaguar's paw prints in the mud beside a stream remind you of the great cat's presence, even in its absence. You study the perfect impression, the size of it, the depth of it, the casual power it represents, and you feel not fear but awe. This is the forest's apex predator, perfectly evolved for hunting in dense vegetation, swimming across rivers, climbing trees when necessary, existing at the top of a food web so complex that scientists are still discovering its connections, its interdependencies. its delicate balances. As evening approaches, you become aware of the changing of the guard, the diurnal creatures yielding the stage to their nocturnal cousins. Bats begin to emerge from their roosts, filling the darkening sky with their erratic flight patterns, their echolocation calls creating a symphony of sound above the range of your hearing. They are not the creatures of nightmare that popular imagination has made them, but rather some of the forest's most important citizens, pollinators, seed dispersers, pest controllers, essential threads in the web of life that holds everything together. The night sounds begin, not threatening, but magnificent, a symphony of life celebrating the darkness. Frogs call from hidden pools, their voices ranging from tiny bell-like chimes to deep bass notes that seem to emerge from the earth itself. Owls hoot in the distance, their calls echoing through the trees like questions posed to the night. Insects sing their ancient songs of attraction and territory, of survival and reproduction, of being alive in a world full of possibilities. You settle against the buttressed roots of a giant kapok tree, feeling its age in your bones, its wisdom in your blood. As you listen to the night symphony building around you, you realize that you are not afraid, not because there is nothing to fear, but because fear seems irrelevant here, pointless. These creatures are not your enemies. They are simply living their lives, following patterns established long before humans walked the earth, existing in relationships so ancient and so complex that your presence here is barely noticed, barely relevant, barely real. And in this recognition, in this acceptance of your own smallness, your own irrelevance in the grand scheme of forest life, you find not humiliation but peace, not defeat but rest, not danger but simply life abundant, magnificent, eternal life, continuing its ancient dance all around you, welcoming you for this brief moment into its eternal embrace. If you're enjoying this journey and want to drift into stories like this every night, make sure to subscribe, tap the little bell, and leave a gentle like so you never miss a single dream. Chapter 3. The forest's hidden sustenance as dawn breaks gently through the canopy above, painting the world in shades of green and gold. You begin to feel the first whispers of hunger, the subtle reminders that your body requires fuel, sustenance, the basic materials of life. And it is here, in this moment of growing awareness, that you begin to understand one of the forest's most profound lessons: the difference between abundance and availability, between wealth and access, between the forest's incredible generosity and your ability to receive its gifts. All around you, the Amazon displays its legendary biodiversity, more species of plants than anywhere else on Earth, fruits you have never seen, nuts you have never tasted, leaves and roots and bark that indigenous peoples have used for food for thousands of years. The forest is not barren, not stingy with its offerings, but rather overwhelmingly generous, almost embarrassingly abundant. Every tree, every shrub, every vine produces something, offers something, gives something back to the great cycle of growth, decay, and renewal that defines this place. You notice Brazil nuts scattered on the forest floor, fallen from trees so tall that their crowns disappear into the canopy far above. Each nut is encased in a hard shell, nested within a woody fruit, the size of a softball, designed by evolution to be cracked open by a Gaudius. Small rodents with teeth strong enough to break through the armor that protects the nutritious seeds within. You pick one up, turn it over in your hands, feel its weight, its solidity, its promise of sustenance, but also its resistance to your unpracticed attempts to open it. Nearby, you spot what might be cacao pods, their colorful husks hanging directly from the trunk of their tree. Inside, are the seeds that become chocolate, surrounded by sweet white pulp that tastes like tropical paradise. But you hesitate, for this knowledge comes from books, from pictures, from stories, not from the deep familiarity that would allow you to recognize with certainty what is safe, what is nourishing, what is beneficial rather than harmful. A strangler fig displays its fruit, small and numerous, covering the trunk like purple jewels. You watch as birds and monkeys feast on them with obvious relish, their behavior suggesting safety, abundance, nutritional value. Yet you remain uncertain, for what nourishes a token, what sustains a spider monkey, may not be what your human digestive system can process, can tolerate, can transform into energy and health. The forest floor is carpeted with fallen fruits, many still fresh, still colorful, still fragrant with the sweetness of recent ripening. You kneel beside a pile of what appear to be small, reddish orbs, their skin smooth and inviting, their aroma pleasant and fruity. They have clearly been partially consumed by various animals, hollowed out, nibbled at, marked with tiny teeth marks that suggest they are indeed food, sustenance for the forest's many residents. But as you hold one, examine it, and consider taking a bite, you realize the profound gap between the forest's offerings and your ability to accept them safely. For every fruit that might nourish you, there might be another that could sicken you, weaken you, or worse. The forest makes no distinction, offers no guarantees, provides no labels or warnings. It simply is abundant and dangerous, generous and potentially lethal, magnificent in its indifference to your specific needs. You remember reading about indigenous peoples who know this forest intimately, who can identify hundreds of edible plants, who understand which parts of each plant are safe at which times of year, which require special preparation, which must be cooked or processed, or combined with other substances to become food rather than poison. Their knowledge, accumulated over generations, passed down through stories and practice and careful observation, represents a relationship with this place that goes far deeper than mere survival. It is intimacy, partnership, love. A stream wanders nearby, its water clear and inviting, gurgling softly over smooth stones, creating small pools that reflect the canopy above. You kneel beside it, cup the water in your hands, feel its coolness, its freshness, its promise of relief from the constant humidity, the gentle dehydration that comes from sweating in this greenhouse climate. The water looks pure, tastes clean, seems to offer exactly what your body craves. Yet even here, even with something as basic as water, the forest presents its complex lessons. For this stream, beautiful as it is, may carry parasites, bacteria, microscopic life forms that are perfectly harmless to the animals that have evolved alongside them, but potentially devastating to your system, unaccustomed as it is to the particular microbes, the specific challenges, the unique chemistry of this place. You watch a family of capybara, the world's largest rodents, drinking peacefully from the stream's edge, their calm demeanor suggesting safety, their obvious health indicating the water's purity. Yet what sustains them, what nourishes them, what keeps them healthy and strong, may not be what your body needs, what your system can handle, what your urban, adapted immune system can process without rebellion. As the day progresses, as your hunger grows more insistent, you find yourself surrounded by the forest's paradox. Incredible abundance, coupled with inaccessibility, generous offerings, coupled with necessary caution. A buffet spread before you that you cannot, dare not, safely consume. It is not cruelty, not hoarding, not meanness on the forest's part, but simply the reality of existing in a place where you do not belong, where you are not adapted, where you are not home. The palm hearts high above you, tender and delicious, require climbing skills you do not possess. The fish in the streams, abundant and nutritious, require catching techniques you have never learned. The edible insects, protein, rich and readily available, challenge food taboos, so deeply ingrained that hunger itself cannot overcome them. Even the coconuts, when you find them, present their own challenges. How to crack them open without proper tools. How to determine which are fresh rather than spoiled. How to access the water and meet inside without injuring yourself in the process. Simple tasks become complex puzzles when attempted without the right knowledge, the right tools, the right relationship with this place. As evening approaches, as your hunger becomes a constant companion, you begin to understand that survival here is not about conquering the forest, not about taking what you need by force or cunning, but about belonging, about being part of the web of relationships that makes abundance accessible, about having the knowledge, the skills, the cultural inheritance that transforms the forest from a beautiful but dangerous stranger into a generous and reliable friend. And so you sit beneath a towering Brazil nut tree, listening to the evening chorus of birds and insects, feeling your hunger as not an enemy to defeat, but a teacher to learn from, a reminder of your place in the world, a gentle invitation to humility, to respect, to understanding that true wealth is not what surrounds you, but what you can receive, what you can safely accept, what you can transform through wisdom, patience, and love into life itself. Chapter 40, The Art of Being Lost. As morning mist rises from the forest floor, like the breath of sleeping giants, you begin to walk again, deeper into this green labyrinth, and slowly, gradually, peacefully, you come to understand what it means to be truly lost. Not lost as a crisis or emergency, but lost as a state of being, a meditation on direction and purpose, a gentle dissolution of the boundaries between here and there, between knowing and unknowing, between finding your way and becoming one with the way itself. The path you thought you were following, the stream you believed would guide you, the distant ridge that seemed to promise orientation. All of these markers fade into the democratic anonymity of green. Every tree begins to look like every other tree. Every clearing resembles the one before, and every fallen log becomes both familiar and strange, as if you are walking through a dream that repeats itself with subtle variations, each iteration beautiful but impossible to distinguish from the last. You pause beneath a buttressed cecropia, its pale trunk rising like a cathedral pillar into the canopy above, and you realize that you have no idea which direction you came from, which way leads deeper into the forest, and which path might lead home. The trails that seemed so obvious when you began, the landmark trees that appeared so distinctive, the memorable clearings that promised to serve as waypoints, all have been absorbed into the forest's gentle conspiracy of sameness, its democratic distribution of green and brown, shadow and filtered light. There is something deeply peaceful about this disorientation, this release from the tyranny of destination, the pressure of arrival, the anxiety of being somewhere other than where you are supposed to be. Here, in this moment of perfect lostness, you begin to understand that the forest has no interest in your human concepts of navigation. Your need for GPS coordinates and compass bearings, your desire to transform the organic chaos of growth and decay into neat grids of reference and control. You climb a small rise, hoping for perspective, for a view that might reveal the lay of the land. But the canopy above remains unbroken, a green ceiling that filters out not only direct sunlight, but also any glimpse of distant landmarks, any hint of the world beyond these trees. You are enclosed, embraced, held in a green room, so vast that its walls cannot be seen, so complete that it becomes the entire universe, the only reality that matters. The compass in your pack spins lazily, responding to magnetic anomalies in the earth, to iron deposits and underground rivers, to forces that have nothing to do with your desire for direction, for certainty, for the illusion of control that comes from knowing exactly where you are and where you are going. The device that once seemed so reliable, so scientific, so trustworthy, becomes just another object, no more useful than a pretty stone, no more relevant than yesterday's newspaper. As you continue walking, or perhaps wandering would be more accurate, you begin to notice how the forest creates its own logic of direction. Streams flow not according to cardinal points, but according to gravity and geology, following the path of least resistance, meandering through the landscape like thoughts, drifting through a peaceful mind. Animals move not toward magnetic north, but toward food, water, and shelter, toward mates, territory, and seasonal abundance. Their navigation system, based on relationships rather than abstractions, on needs rather than concepts. The indigenous peoples who know this place, who call it home, navigate not by fighting the forest's tendency toward disorientation, but by embracing it, by learning to read the subtle signs that speak of direction without reference to human constructs. The way certain trees grow more moss on their north-facing sides, how particular flowers open only in afternoon light, which bird calls indicate proximity to water, and how the angle of filtered sunlight changes throughout the day, create a navigation system based on relationship rather than domination, on partnership rather than conquest. You sit beside a strangler fig, its massive trunk, actually a hollow cylinder where the original host tree has long since rotted away, leaving only the living architecture of the vine that consumed it. You reflect on your own situation, how getting lost here is not a failure of navigation, but a success of surrender. Not a problem to be solved, but a gift to be received. You are not lost in the sense of being in the wrong place, but rather found in a place where concepts like right and wrong have no meaning. The forest path, when there is a path at all, follows no human logic. It appears and disappears like a conversation that starts and stops according to its own mysterious rhythm. Sometimes it widens into what seems like a highway, broad and clear and confident, only to narrow into a barely visible trace, then vanish entirely into a wall of vegetation that shows no sign of ever having been disturbed by human passage. Animal trails crisscross your route, some worn smooth by generations of tapir and deer, others freshly broken through dense undergrowth by some large creature whose passage you can follow, but whose destination remains unknown. These paths lead to salt licks and watering holes, to fruiting trees and seasonal gathering places, to denning sites and territorial boundaries that exist in a geography of need and instinct rather than human convenience. You realize that every step you take carries you not just through space, but through time. Past trees that were ancient before your country existed, over soil that has been accumulating, decomposing, and regenerating for millions of years, through air that has been breathed by countless creatures, processed by countless leaves, enriched, purified, and shared in an endless cycle of giving and receiving that connects every living thing in this place. The sun, when you can glimpse it through the canopy, seems to move in lazy circles rather than its familiar arc across the sky. Its light, filtered and refracted by countless leaves, creates an illumination that has no obvious source, no clear direction, no reliable indicator of time or orientation. It is simply light, warm, green, and beautiful, asking nothing of you except that you receive it, accept it, and be grateful for its presence without trying to use it for purposes it was never meant to serve. As afternoon fades into evening, as the forest prepares for its nightly transformation, you make your peace with being lost, not as defeat but as arrival. You have not failed to find your way. You have succeeded in letting go of the need for a way, in discovering that the forest itself is the destination. That being here, being present, being alive in this moment, in this place, is not the means to some other end, but the end itself, complete, perfect, exactly as it should be. And so you settle into the growing darkness, listening to the night sounds beginning their ancient chorus, feeling the forest breathe around you, embracing you, welcoming you into its timeless rhythm of growth and rest, of wandering and staying, of being lost and being found in the same eternal moment, the same endless here, the same perfect now. Chapter 5. The profound solitude of being, as night settles over the forest, like a gentle benediction, as the last golden rays of sunlight fade from green to black, you find yourself entering into a solitude unlike any you have ever experienced. Not the solitude of an empty house or a quiet room, but the solitude of being the only one of your kind in a world teeming with life. The solitude of being profoundly, utterly, beautifully alone in the most connected place on earth. The darkness here is not the darkness of cities, punctuated by streetlights and neon signs, not the darkness of suburbs, broken by porch lights and television screens. This is an ancient darkness, a primordial darkness, the darkness that existed before humans learned to make fire, before they dreamed of electricity, before they imagined that night was something to be conquered rather than embraced. You sit with your back against the massive buttressed roots of a kapok tree, feeling its age in your spine, its wisdom in your bones, and you listen to the night symphony that has been playing here for millions of years. The same songs, the same rhythms, the same mysterious conversations between creatures who know nothing of your existence, care nothing for your presence, continue their ancient dialogue as if you were simply another shadow among shadows. The sounds surround you, not threatening but magnificent. Each call and response is part of a communication network so complex that scientists spend lifetimes trying to decode even small portions of its meaning. Frogs call from hidden pools, their voices creating cascades of sound that rise and fall like liquid music. Owls hoot in the distance, their calls echoing through the trees like questions posed to the darkness. Night monkeys chatter somewhere high in the canopy, their conversations urgent with meaning you cannot understand. And beneath all of these voices, the deeper sounds, the forest's bass notes, the rustle of leaves as nocturnal creatures move through the understory, the soft splash of something entering a stream, the distant crash of a falling branch, the whisper of wind through leaves, all of it combining into a symphony of solitude, a lullaby of aloneness that somehow feels less like isolation than like membership in something vast, inclusive, and eternal. You close your eyes and feel the forest's presence pressing in around you, not oppressively but embracingly, like being held by something too large to comprehend, too ancient to question, too complex to understand, but simple enough to experience, to receive, to accept as a gift beyond measure. The trees breathe around you, inhaling your exhaled carbon dioxide, exhaling the oxygen you need to live, creating an intimacy of exchange, a partnership of survival that requires no contract, no negotiation, no conscious agreement. In this darkness, in this solitude, your mind begins to quiet in ways you never expected. The constant chatter of civilization, the endless stream of notifications and obligations and expectations, all of it fades into irrelevance, becomes as distant as the stars you cannot see through the canopy above. You are not checking the time because time itself seems to have stopped, or rather, transformed into something organic and cyclical rather than linear and urgent. Your thoughts, when they come, arrive slowly, like bubbles rising through deep water. Each one is clear and distinct, uncontaminated by the noise and haste that usually characterize your mental life. You think about home, but it seems abstract now, theoretical, like a story you once read about someone else's life. The concerns that felt so urgent just days ago, the deadlines and appointments and responsibilities that seemed so important, all of it revealed as the temporary construction it always was, the elaborate fiction of urgency that humans create to give meaning to their brief lives. But this is not depression or despair, not the darkness of hopelessness or the weight of futility. Instead, it is a profound peace, a recognition of your place in something so much larger than your individual concerns that those concerns become not unimportant, but right-sized, appropriate to their actual significance in the grand scheme of existence. You are one small consciousness in a world full of consciousness, one brief life in an eternal community of living things, one temporary arrangement of atoms in a universe that has been arranging and rearranging those same atoms for billions of years. The solitude becomes a teacher, showing you the difference between loneliness and aloneness, between isolation and independence, between being cut off and being connected to something too large to name. You realize that you have never been truly alone before, never been far enough from human constructions, human assumptions, human noise, to hear the deeper silence that underlies all sound, the profound peace that exists beneath all activity. Hours pass, or perhaps minutes, or perhaps eternities, time itself becoming irrelevant in this place where day and night cycle according to rhythms that preceded and will outlast all human timekeeping. You find yourself entering states of consciousness you have never experienced, not sleep exactly, but not wakefulness as you usually understand it. Something deeper, more receptive, more open to the subtle communications that flow constantly through this place. You become aware of your breathing, how it has synchronized with the forest's own rhythm, the slow inhale and exhale of oxygen and carbon dioxide that connects you to every green thing around you. You feel your heartbeat, steady and reliable, adding its small percussion to the great symphony of circulation that moves through every living cell in this place. The endless pumping of sap and blood and lymph and life that keeps the whole system functioning. The profound solitude teaches you that you are never actually alone. That isolation is impossible in a world where every breath is shared, every exhalation becomes food for plants, every inhalation is a gift from leaves. You are part of a web of exchange so intimate, so essential, so continuous, that the boundaries between self and other, between individual and environment, between alone and together begin to dissolve like sugar in warm water. As the deepest part of night arrives, as the darkness becomes complete and encompassing, you feel yourself settling into a peace so profound that it seems to emanate from the earth itself. rising up through the roots of the great tree at your back, flowing into your body, your mind, your spirit. You understand now that this solitude is not punishment, but privilege, not abandonment, but embrace, not separation, but the deepest possible connection to the source of all life, all consciousness, all being. The forest dreams around you, and you begin to dream with it, your consciousness merging with the slow thoughts of trees, the patient meditations of moss, the ancient memories held in soil and stone. You are alone, but you are also part of everything, separate but connected, individual but integrated into something so vast, complex, and beautiful that your solitude becomes not empty space but full presence, not absence but the most complete form of attendance possible. Your fears, the anxieties that drove you to seek connection, to avoid aloneness, to fill every silence with noise and every emptiness with activity, all of these fade into the darkness, like smoke dissipating in still air. What remains is something you have never felt before, a solitude so rich and nourishing that it becomes its own form of companionship, an aloneness so complete that it circles back into unity, a silence so profound that it contains all possible sounds. And as you sit there, breathing with the forest, dreaming with the trees, existing in perfect harmony with the darkness that embraces you, you understand that this is not something you could survive, not in the sense of enduring or conquering or overcoming, but something you could only surrender to, only receive, only accept as the greatest gift imaginable. The gift of being truly, completely, perfectly alone with everything that matters, everyone that has ever mattered, every consciousness that has ever existed in this eternal moment of forest darkness, profound solitude, and infinite connection. The night continues its ancient journey toward dawn, and you continue your journey into deeper and deeper states of peace, of acceptance, of understanding that survival in this place is not about fighting, but about joining, not about conquering, but about belonging, not about remaining yourself, but about becoming part of something so much larger and more wonderful than any individual self could ever be. Conclusion: the gentle recognition of limits as the first pale light of dawn begins to filter through the canopy above, painting the forest floor in gentle shades of green and gold. You find yourself changed by your night in the forest's embrace, not weakened but enlightened, not defeated but illuminated, not diminished but somehow expanded beyond the boundaries of your individual self into something larger, more connected, more aware of your place in the great web of existence. You rise slowly from your resting place against the ancient kapok tree, feeling the forest morning awakening around you. The gradual shift from night sounds to day sounds, from nocturnal dreams to diurnal reality, from the deep solitude of darkness to the busy community of daylight. And as you stretch and move and prepare to leave this sacred space, you carry with you a profound understanding of why you would not survive one day in the Amazon rainforest, not because the forest is cruel or hostile, not because it wishes you harm or denies you welcome, but simply because survival here requires a different kind of being than the one you currently embody, a different relationship with time and space, with comfort and discomfort, with certainty and mystery, with the self and the world beyond the self. The climate that embraced you with its constant warmth and humidity, its gentle rains and persistent moisture, would slowly drain your energy, not through any violence, but through its very consistency, its refusal to provide the variation, the contrast, the relief that your body expects, needs, craves from its evolutionary inheritance of seasonal change and daily fluctuation. The magnificent creatures that share this space, from the smallest ants to the greatest jaguars, live according to programming so ancient and so perfect that your presence barely registers in their awareness. You are neither threat nor opportunity to most of them, simply irrelevant to their ancient patterns of hunting and hiding, mating and nesting, territorial defense, and seasonal migration. They would not attack you out of malice, but they might harm you out of indifference, out of simple adherence to behaviors that have kept their species alive for millions of years. The abundant food that surrounds you, fruits and nuts and leaves and roots in incredible variety and quantity, remains largely inaccessible, not because the forest hoards its wealth, but because you lack the deep cultural knowledge, the generational wisdom, the intimate relationship with this place that would allow you to distinguish safely between nourishment and poison, between medicine and harm, between what feeds and what kills. The pathways that wind through this green labyrinth, the streams that meander through the understory, the clearings that appear and disappear according to the forest's own mysterious logic. All of these would lead you not to destinations you recognize, but deeper into a geography of relationship rather than destination, a landscape of being rather than going, a territory that cannot be conquered or controlled, but only experienced, only received, only joined, and finally, the profound solitude that would settle over you as darkness fell, as you found yourself alone with millions of other forms of consciousness, but no other human voice, no other familiar presence, no other member of your own species to share the burden and joy of being human in a world that operates according to rules you barely understand. This solitude would not kill you through any external force, but through the simple recognition of how much of your identity depends on human connection, human validation, human companionship. You would not die dramatically in the Amazon rainforest, not torn apart by predators, or felled by exotic diseases, or lost forever in impenetrable wilderness. Instead, you would simply fade gently, peacefully, like a sound growing quieter until it merges with silence, like a color becoming paler until it merges with light, like an individual consciousness gradually dissolving into the larger consciousness that flows through all living things. This is not tragedy but truth, not failure but recognition, not defeat but understanding. You are perfectly adapted for the world you come from, the environments you know, the relationships and challenges and opportunities of human civilization. But this place, this ancient sanctuary, this cathedral of green and growing things, exists according to different rules, serves different purposes, welcomes different kinds of beings than the one you currently are. And perhaps, in recognizing this, Son, in accepting this limitation with grace and humility, in understanding that there are places in this world where you do not belong, cannot survive, should not attempt to conquer, you find not diminishment but expansion, not loss but gain, not failure but the deepest possible success, the success of knowing your place, respecting your limits, honoring the boundaries that keep you safe while keeping other things sacred as you prepare to leave this green sanctuary, to return to the world of roads and buildings, of schedules and obligations, of human voices and familiar challenges. You carry with you the memory of perfect peace, of absolute solitude, of complete connection to something larger than yourself. You have spent one night in the Amazon rainforest, and though you could not survive here, though you do not belong here, though this is not your home, you have received from it the greatest gift imaginable, the gift of understanding your place in the world, your connection to all living things, your membership in the great community of consciousness that includes every creature, every plant, every microorganism that has ever drawn breath, ever reached toward light, ever participated in the ancient dance of growth, decay, and renewal that makes life possible. You would not survive one day in the Amazon rainforest, but you have been forever changed by one night in its embrace, forever enriched by one evening in its presence, forever blessed by one moment of perfect belonging to something infinitely larger, infinitely wiser, infinitely more wonderful than any individual life could ever be. And as you walk slowly back toward the world, you know, the world where you can survive and thrive and contribute your own small gifts to the great human story. You carry with you the forest's final teaching that survival is not about conquering or controlling, not about taking what you need or imposing your will, but about finding your proper place, accepting your role, contributing your voice to the eternal chorus of being that includes all things, connects all things, blesses all things with the simple, profound, miraculous gift of existence itself. The Amazon rainforest sleeps peacefully behind you as you go, dreaming its ancient dreams, breathing its eternal breath, continuing its patient work of being exactly, perfectly, eternally what it has always been, what it will always be, what it must be to keep the world whole, healthy, alive with possibilities you can barely imagine, but are grateful, deeply grateful to have touched, however briefly, however gently, however perfectly in this one moment of connection between your small human consciousness and the vast, ancient, infinitely loving consciousness that flows through all living things. And in that gratitude, in that recognition, in that perfect moment of understanding, you find not the story of survival, but something far more precious, the story of surrender, of acceptance, of love for a world so beautiful, so complex, so mysterious that it asks not to be conquered, but to be honored, not to be survived, but to be celebrated, not to be understood, but to be loved, exactly as it is, exactly as it has always been, exactly as it will always be, forever and ever, world without end.